Welcome back to Better Together, where we have real conversations for people building real businesses. I'm Kelly Sundsvold, co-founder of Gold Bear Media, and I'm joined as always by my favorite co-host and business partner, Shawn Sundsvold. Today on the Better Together podcast, we're talking about something that every founder thinks they'll get around to, but most avoid until it's too late. And that's preparing a business exit. Our guest today is Joe Stapleton, co-founder of Exit Engine, a business growth platform designed to help founders build companies that they can eventually exit without burning out or breaking down. Joe and his team are on a mission to help business owners stop being the bottleneck in their own company and start building a business that runs without them. Whether you're aiming to sell, scale, or simply get your life back, Joe brings clarity and structure to what is often a very emotional process. Today, we'll talk about what holds founders back from creating exit-ready companies, what a strong business ecosystem actually looks like, and why building with the end in mind isn't about quitting, it's about creating freedom. So welcome to the show, Joe. I appreciate you being here.
Hi, Kelly. Hi, Shawn. Thanks for having me, man. This is really exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So let's start at the very beginning. What was kind of the motivation and the spark behind Exit Engine, and why did you and your team feel like this is something founders really needed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great question. Look, I am an exited founder. So first of all, I actually owned a digital marketing company with a couple of other partners that we sold in 2007. Going through that, looking back, I had no idea what we were doing. The reality is that we got lucky. Knowing what I know now about exits and where we were, it was amazing that it even happened. The reality was, we had terrible customer concentration. The books were good. We had good profitability. My partner, who was the CEO, was fantastic at making sure the business was healthy. But we had some things that weren't normally going to be acceptable things for moving forward. The reason we got lucky, frankly, was because we were, again, a digital marketing company in the right place at the right time, right? We kind of got lucky, and while we made a lot of money, the other part of the whole thing, there's a second half to exit that nobody ever talks about. And that is the earn-out phase and what comes next. It's one thing to think about the closing and the money, which is what everybody's focused on. But one of the big reasons we wanted to start Exit Engine and help people through this stuff was because I realized that it was like losing my business was like losing an arm.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
didn't expect it to be because I thought I was happy about it. But what happened as a result was it just the nature of life changes so much so quickly, especially during an earnout period where I started to lose control, yet I was still on the hook to make sure things happened the way they had been happening for the last 10 years, right? And I had to get through this 3-year period to be able to earn out. And then in the meantime, I was no longer the boss. I was being asked by superiors that I suddenly had to get on a plane and travel all over the world all week and to do things that I hadn't been doing or hadn't had to do when I was an owner of the company. And the other big thing was that I had no plan for what was next. And that sent me into a spiral that lasted about a decade. Other things happened, other stuff came up, but it was a matter of just my life was upside down. And I honestly, and I couldn't even at the time, I wouldn't have been able to tell you that that's what this was. It wasn't until later that I was able to look back at it and recognize that this was what it was. Eventually, I worked my way into the M&A world, and this is what happens to some of us who you reach a certain age that these companies kind of come these brokerage companies come calling on you because I've been around, I've got a big Rolodex, I know a lot of people. I'm out of a certain age. Maybe I have friends who are going to sell their companies, and so I'm a good target, to kind of get into this commission-only brokerage situation, which is really what a lot of the industry is too. It's people who have good business experience, but what they're really doing, which is what I was doing in the M&A world, was hooking buyers up with sellers, and without any effect of the change or without being able to do anything. And the big thing that led us to Exit Engine, frankly, was my job a lot of the time was to cold call companies on behalf of private equity firms and try to see if they were interested in selling without knowing anything about them except their name and maybe how much revenue they had and maybe how big they were. I would go in, and the first thing that I would do was to basically ruin their lives. I would first tell them, hey, I got someone who might want to buy you. And the next thing I would tell them was that their value wasn't what they thought it was. And the third thing I would tell them was, you know what, doesn't look like we're going to be able to move forward after all. This was before we even got into an LOI or a due diligence or anything. The problem was for me was that I saw all these businesses that could be sellable, could be valuable if they just knew what they didn't know, and they knew how to basically now change how they were managing their businesses to get there and to make themselves valuable and sellable. And so that's why, essentially, why my partner John and I left that world, left the brokerage world, and started our own advisory firm called Exio Advisors, and that's a mid-market, advisory firm where we're helping people early on in the process identify where they are now, where they ultimately want to head, what does a successful exit look like to them, and then walk them through the process and of not only changing themselves but changing their business so that they're in a way in which they can be more valuable and sellable. And we measure that all the way across. And in fact, what we have come up with is actually the best way to measure the health and sustainability of your business is to do it through our exit planning lens.
Okay. Something you mentioned there, like, and you kind of talked about it through the whole thing, but that decade, right, of like trying to figure out what to do. And, so many business owners, especially when as a founder, right, you're running your company, you're in it day to day. And suddenly to have to look at it with a very, very different lens, what were some of the challenges, as you were going through that process and that you've seen other founders go through in that process?
So I think the first thing is I wish I had me back then, right? Honestly, to tell me, hey, look, this is normal, what you're going through. And in fact, if I had known what was going to happen, I may not have actually sold at that point.
Yeah.
And again, not fair. Because we were making money, we were doing well. I didn't, but we were tired. And the reality is that, we spent a decade, building a business, working really primarily with two or three major clients. I was, and by the way, it was the marketing business. You guys know, right? It was all hours, all the time. It was constantly on. It was coming home, trying to be a husband and father for a couple of hours before I went back to work at night, and and got 4 hours of sleep, and and was traveling all the time and constantly working and all that stuff for and that was the 10 years. And then there was 10 years before that, where I was in the advertising world and all kinds of other stuff and as well. And so you get to a point where you just got, your burnout is real. Okay. And especially if you have certain, neurospicy kind of stuff going on like I do. Okay. It tends to be burnout is a thing because you throw yourself into stuff. You are working and working and working. You're trying to do this thing. You're trying to support your family. You're trying to do what you think you're supposed to do. You get caught up in the grind culture, which is another thing that I am completely against, just philosophically, and think is complete bull. That you can't take time for yourself, that you can't do this stuff. The stuff I have learned and the stuff since is just, I just wish I had. Yeah. I wish I had myself, to consult, back then. But I think from the transition standpoint, I think the thing that I take away most, and what I try to tell other founders is just to warn them, first of all, this is a natural part of the process. You got to understand that your brain, okay, as a general thing, has been in a mode of doing things in a way, right? It's been in a mode of identifying yourself, right, with what you're doing and how you're doing it. And if you've gotten to a level where you are not only in charge, but you probably are making some decent money, that puts you in a place within your community, right? That might be a level. It might be that you have certain friends, and you might be an industry leader. You might be someone who not only leads your company, but is involved heavily in the community and things like that, right? There are, and of course you've also got the family side of things. And of course there's who's going to take the business over and things like that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I think the big transition is simply a matter of understanding that you're going to lose a piece of you no matter what. The question is whether or not you are able to basically, you can kind of prepare yourself for that change and be able to kind of work through that. And I think one of the key takeaways really is that you need to know what's next, right? Okay. And you have to, before you even think about selling your business, you have to start thinking there, right? We can tell you what your business is and how it looks and what are the things that our buyers are going to see, but only you know what you want, right? And if you've got a wife or a husband or business partners or employees, which all of us do, you're going to want to make sure that they're involved in what that decision is too, and understanding so that you don't land in a place where you go, oh crap, my father retired, right, when I was about 25 years old, and my mom, right, was like, what are you doing here? Right? It was like he started coming home every day, right? You haven't been home in 25 years. What are you talking about? Right?
And it's a shift.
It's a shit. And then you're like getting in on like what I'm doing, like, why are you vacuuming like that or whatever it was? And it was like, dude, you can't just walk in here after 25 years and just like, so that's a mild example, but I mean, the idea is that that's what happens to people, even when it's positive. And I want to be very clear. My situation was there were other factors that were going into it. I was going through a divorce. There was all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to teach people what they need to look out for, because this is not something that is taught anywhere. It's not something that, if you've even been to business school, which most founders, by the way, have not.
Right.
It's not taught there anyway. This is not some people think that I'm just going to sell this business the way I sell my house. And the reality is that is just not the case. What we like to say is that solid exits, right? Successful exits are engineered, not improvised.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good statement. It's a really good statement. One of the things you mentioned there is, talking about the grind, right? And as a founder, it seems to hit differently because it's your business, it's your baby, right? So, we go to grow our business, we start getting employees, and there's always that moment where, you take your first weekend away, and the business functions, and then you take your first week away, right? But that's part of growing a business, and you kind of get to a point, and one of the things is, how do you get could your business run without you for a month, 2 months, 3 months? It's a really powerful question, and one I don't think a lot of business owners think about, especially if they're in the day-to-day grind. But why do you think most founders struggle to answer that question honestly?
Well, first of all, I think that they're not asking it to begin with. So I think the first thing that we come across, and we do this happens all the time, because again, a lot of what we're teaching is how to change yourself, because in order to grow a business from a certain point, right? It does take. That's my favorite. My partner John's favorite expression is. It's a Marshall Goldsmith quote. It says, "What got you here won't get you there."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's nothing truer in that than in the case of exit planning, right? This is so true. And again, you'll talk to your friends, and your friends who exit and go, "Oh, it was great. I had a thing. I made a lot of money and whatever." Well, they're in a different industry with a different thing, and everything is different. Every single business is as different as individual people. Okay, and in fact, to your point, Shawn, much of the company at this stage, okay, if you are a founder who is tied up in every decision in the whole thing, the company is taking on your personality. Mm-hmm. Okay, the company is you. All right, for better, for worse, whatever. The first thing that is required of you when you're going to plan an exit, in our opinion, is that you start to establish your ability to remove yourself from the business, because it's the number one thing. It's the hardest thing to do and the thing that matters the most, right, to the actual ability to sell the company. You have to be able to eventually leave and not be there. And that company is the idea. The reason that the buyer is buying that company is because that company is going to be able to operate without you. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, but making that transition, as we just talked about before, is that psychological shift is difficult, because you are concerned about, because you've been involved in it. It's habit. Right. And when we talk about the grind culture, my philosophy, frankly, is that, and I built my company in this manner in this time, because I've had several other companies that I didn't do this. And frankly, I blame not doing this for why they didn't work out. Mm-hmm. Is the ability to be able to build this with intent, but not on other people's timelines, or in a way in which I think I'm supposed to do it because society tells me I'm supposed to do it this way.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to work 17, 18, 19, 20 hours a day. I did it for years. I lost myself. I lost a marriage. I lost a lot. Okay. Yeah. And the gain of that was not nearly remotely close. Okay. what I do know, and what the way that I approach it, and the way I try to teach people to do it, is to say, look, don't listen to the hustle bros. Okay, that's fine. When you're 22 years old, you should be hustling. Okay, but if you're 40 or 50 years old at this point and you've had a company for 25 years, it's time for you to stop hustling. Okay, it's time for you to be able to step back and say, what do I want to go? I got this time left. I've done this great thing. I've done something, by the way, and by the way, pat yourself on the back, man, because it's hard to do this. It's hard to run a business for 10 to 15 years and to grow it to a level and to support your family and to have, all the bells and whistles. And maybe you're lucky enough to have the nice salary and the second house and the kids went to great schools and whatever. And so now you're at a place where you're great. And by the way, you've paid yourself enough money that you've been sticking it away in retirement and IRAs and all kinds of stuff and whatever. And so that you're pretty much set. But now you got this asset. Right? This is potentially generational wealth. And if you're between $2 and $5 million in total and top line revenue right now, you are at an inflection point, whether you know it or not, because you have a $5 million company in most cases has the ability, has come far enough, has the momentum, has most of the things you need to be able to start building a $30 million company. Okay. And that means, and that's $30 million potentially in the next 3, 4, 5 years if you do it right. Okay. And so you have a decision to make, right? Am I the right person for this job? Okay. Can I take this business forward? Do I have enough, intestinal fortitude to manage through this from here? What's my relationship like at home? Right? What's going on there? What are there other things out there that I want to do? Right? Or what would I do, to your point, Shawn, if I could remove myself from the business, maybe I want to keep the business. See, exit planning isn't actually about selling, right? It's just creating a healthy, sustainable business today that you can then sell on your own terms when you want to, right? So I think that the short, that was a long way of saying that. The idea here is that this transition and the ability to be able to see requires you to look at yourself, look at your business, but know where you want to head first, right? Run towards something, not away from something.
Yeah, and I love that in the sense of, I think the statistic is something like, 75 or 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. There's another percentage that goes out, that cuts back, of like those 25% that survive, another 50%, fall off in the next, by 10 years, right? So if you can get a business to 10 years, you've done something that most people cannot do, right? And so I think I love the way you said that, of like, what is next? Because that's a haul just to get to that point, right?
Exactly right. I mean, look, 10 years is a long time to be doing anything. Okay. I mean, it is. Yeah, and it's, but so again, pat yourself on the back. You have gotten this thing to a place. And if you have been making a living and providing for your family and the whole thing, you are a hero. Okay. Yeah. And again, male, female, doesn't matter. Like, this is whatever you have done to this point is absolutely, deserves congratulations. But the warning is this. Again, what got you here won't get you there. Okay. The way that you have built the business, the grit, the grind, the can-do attitude, the I'll do everything myself if that's what it takes, whatever, has to stop now. It has to, because you won't be able to transfer the business to somebody else if you are mixed up in all of it, right? And so what we're counseling people to do is to say, look, first is set your trajectory. Where do you want to head? And you can do that with numbers. I need a certain amount, but that certain amount that you're targeting, that's not top line revenue. Right? You got to calculate how much money you're going to get in your pocket when you close and then when you earn out, right? You need to calculate that. If you've got partners, if you've got debt, if you've got other equity plays and things like that you're, cap table with other people on it, all of those people are going to get a cut. You've heard the stories of people who grow these businesses and then are like completely either forced out of them, right? Or are in a position where they go to they sell the whole thing and the founder gets almost nothing because the cap table is so diluted, right? And so those are extreme examples, but just to say that the idea here is that the idea is simply a matter of saying, I need to set my trajectory. I need to understand what my business is now, what my business can be, and I need to basically be able to change myself to understand that my job is now. And I use the example of a fishing boat captain, right? If you've ever been fishing, deep sea fishing or anything else, you don't see the captains never holding a reel. Okay. The captain of the ship does not fish. The captain's job is to put you on the fish. The captain's job is to make sure to take care of the boat, the safety of the crew, to direct the thing, to make sure that when you do get something on, that you maneuver the boat so that you don't get it caught in the propeller or whatever, right? This notion is that that's where you need to be. Okay. In order to take that company from a $5 million company to a $30 million company, you need to be able to remove yourself and be the person who works on your business and not in your business anymore.
Yes.
And that's the number one thing. And there are, by the way, and then there are 12 other things that 12 other areas that you're going to need to examine very, very closely in order to make sure you can maximize your value and saleability. And again, all of this, I want to be very clear about this. Selling the business is one option, okay? If you build a healthy, sustainable company, you will have many options. And that's what we're trying to give people at Exit Engine, right? The understanding that if they change themselves, if they look at their business and through this lens, that they can do two things. One is that they will be able to understand themselves and their business better so that they can do a better job moving it forward. And they will be able to find the people, the advisory partners that they need to help them move the needle in a specific way so that they can reach their goals in their time frame, right? That's what we're doing at Exit Engine.
Yeah. Really, like something you said was the founder bottleneck, like you were describing that, where like they get working in their business and not on their business. And so many entrepreneurs that we talk to, and, Gold Bear has no exception to it. As you're building the business, you have to wear all the hats. You have to wear the accountant hat. You have to wear the marketing hat.
I've worn so many hats.
Sales
this is what's
hat.
happened to me. Yes, I know.
Yes.
I know it.
Good explanation for sure. But yeah, like just having those bottlenecks really slows down the growth of the business, but also sounds like it slows down the transferableness of the business as well. So Exit Engine talks a lot about, like, obviously helping businesses build the end in mind. What does that actually look like day to day, or is it more like a mindset, systems, or is it both?
I think both is the right answer. I think, again, it's a matter of what we're doing in Exit Engine specifically is basically we are basically bringing together three pillars that we think are really important for any business. Okay. And this is, by the way, for any business. Exit Engine is about you, the founder, the owner, being able to examine yourself and the business and be able to set an exit trajectory and then manage the business to that point and measure it as you go. And the reason that we want to measure it is because you can't change, you can't improve what you can't measure.
Right.
And so, and the problem with the industry in general, the M&A industry, and particularly in the mid-market, but in general, is that we have these different methods of valuing companies. Okay. And there are some of the game becomes, this is how I value my company, and the buyer's game is, yes, but this is how we value your company.
Mm-hmm.
And so what the buyer is trying to do ultimately, is to be able to devalue the company so that they can make more money at moving forward. Okay, get a deal, and then I'm going to be able to do a good job, right? However, what buyers really want, okay, is a healthy, transferable business that will start to run immediately when it's right, without skipping a beat, and has growth potential, right? And the reason that's important to know is that it's a matter of, so if I hand him or her a healthy, repeatable, sustainable business, that makes my healthy, sustainable business more valuable in and of itself, right? Mm-hmm. It raises my multiple. I become a premium business that buyers are going to fight for, okay? And that's ultimately the best position to be in because it's all about options, right? But the day-to-day is simply a matter of saying, in our methodology, the total exit value system, we call it, is the first thing you're doing is it assessing what is the actual, and by the way, you're holistically assessing it, right? This isn't about, oh, I think I have a marketing problem, and so I'm going to go get a marketing consultant. This is what people do, right? Oh, I think I have a sales problem, so I'm going to go get a sales consultant. Oh, I think I have a accounting problem, so I'm going to get a new accountant, whatever, right? The problem is that these are all one-offs, and what people are not again, who haven't been, maybe you've been focused on, again, top line revenue, building sales, getting your clients and do the whole thing, managing employees, right? You're missing the big picture. You're missing how everything fits together. And so when I think I have a marketing problem, chances are I don't have a marketing problem. Chances are I actually have a process problem. But I've hired a marketing consultant, right, to fix something, and the marketing consultant doesn't know because they're marketing consultants, right? So what we're really doing at Exit Engine is bringing together three big things. One is the learning, right, the way I have to change myself, the way I have to look at my business, and the assessing of that. Okay, so that I can make a roadmap, a plan for moving forward. Once I have that plan and I start to execute the plan, now I need the people. I need to bring in people that understand that within this context, I've identified this issue, right? And now I know it's this issue and it's not this other issue that I'm going to accidentally fix and then create three more problems as a result. I need to unpack the things that I've done for the last 15 years, right? And not scale. When I scale my company from $5 to $30 million, I'm going to scale everything. I'm going to scale the good stuff and I'm going to scale the bad stuff. And so what we're teaching people to do is to try to figure out what is the good stuff and what is the bad stuff. And let's scale that, bring in the people that can actually help you move that needle in the right way, in the right direction, in a holistic way, so that by the time you're done, all you have is options. And maybe that option is, again, that you keep the business and you're just on the beach while it runs itself. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love, the idea of, you're not just looking at it from a valuation perspective, you're looking at it more of a holistic perspective. As you're putting that together, what factors really move the needle for a company's value that founders may overlook as they're looking at it from their perspective?
Yeah, look, I think it's a matter of, the founders think they know because they think they know, right? And it's a matter of, again, understanding what it is you don't know, right? The reality is that for people, there are 10 different areas of the business, okay, that our total exit value system helps you examine, okay? And without going into all 10 of them, the idea is that they are very common things that you're going to, areas you're going to look at. But there are things like, what's your risk profile? Well, what is risk? Well, the reality is that everything is risk, right? But then there's specific risk. There's insurance risk, right? There's things that I got to do to protect the business to make sure that it doesn't go away. There are things I got to do to protect key employees. There are things that I got to do to make sure that I'm not going to open myself up to lawsuits. So there's the legal risk, right? There's the financial risk. There's the idea of knowing, do I actually know what I'm actually making? Do I actually know how profitable I am? Do I know where every single dollar that comes in the top and where it goes? And am I leaking profit, which every business is? Every business right now is leaking profit. It is. It's not a question of how good you are. Okay. Somewhere, even if I'm oversubscribed to 16 SaaS websites, right? The reality is that there are expenses that you are making, and there are processes that you have put in place that were just the way we'll do them for now, and that was 10 years ago, right? And now you're doing it the same way. Are your processes written down, right? Are they just in your head, right? Why is this important? Because a buyer in due diligence is going to come in and they're going to look at every single nook and cranny, not just the numbers. They're going to look at you. I had someone a client the other day asked me about, why do they want to know about my wife's Easy Pass? Because we're in the middle of a transition of a transaction or through due diligence. And I said, well, I don't know, like why, how did it come up? And they're like, well, they're looking through all our, financials and stuff, and they see that the Easy Pass is attached to the business account. And so I'm paying the whole thing. But why do they care? I said, because they want to know where every dollar is going. And if there was no problem with your wife having her Easy Pass attached to your business account because you did it 7 years ago and forgot, right? It's fine, but they're going to call you on it. And what that does is not because they're trying to call you on that, but because it starts to be like an indicative of other things. Oh, if you're doing the Easy Pass thing, and even if whether it's on purpose or you forgot or whatever, it's okay. It's just that if you knew that and said, hey, by the way, I've got my wife's Easy Pass on here, and so took it and removed it before you went through due diligence, that issue wouldn't have come up, right? these are the kind of things that you just got to know. It's just not something, and in order to know it, you have to have been through it or studied it or something. And most founders have not had the opportunity yet to go through it. And that's why we're trying to do it like this.
Yeah.
Let's help them ahead of time, understand way ahead of time how to build the business in this direction.
As you're working with people, I mean, you've got your 10-step process that you work with. Is there any one piece of the process that you really focus on versus the other 9? Or is there one thing that really has to stand out in what you're doing for a founder that you'll be like, yes, we can move forward with you on this? Like, where's the one, is there a linchpin, I guess is my question.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, everything is highly customized. So what we're doing here is based on an assessment of your particular situation. It has nothing to do with other people. It turns out that we know this, that the exit planning is really just growth planning with intent. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so what we're trying to say is that it's a matter of your individual situation. And like any roadmap, there are 2 critical pieces of information you have to have when you start building a plan. The first one is, where am I right now? And where do I want to head? Without those 2 pieces of information, you can't get anywhere. Right. So you got to know. And that's basically this in its essence. That's what we're doing, is we're providing that insight and that roadmap, and then the guidance through it, how to go through. And then we're going to bring the people to bear that you need. It's a SWAT team, right? We've got every single business discipline in our advisory partner network, right? We've got marketing people and sales consultants, every fractionals and CFOs. These are elite consultants, people who have had a lot of corporate experience, worked for the big 5, have really good insight and knowledge and know-how and their own systems and things like that, and are working through us to be able to deliver this holistic kind of approach to the business. So it's very customized. It's very specific to the individual needs. But we are kind of focused right now with Exit Engine, at least, in this $2 to $5 million top line revenue situation, because that would put you at EBITDA generally maybe of about $500,000 to $800,000. Just so everybody knows from an evaluation standpoint, and again, this is just one method. It's the most common method, but it's called the EBITDA method. EBITDA stands for your earnings before interest, taxes, appreciation. So what you're going to do is you're going to have a multiple, okay? You're going to take a number and multiply that, and that multiple comes out of industry. It comes out of comps. It really comes out of nowhere, frankly. It's the truth. I mean, the reality is all of this is made up, okay? So I just want everybody to understand that there is no way, right? There is an agreement, okay? At the end of the day, all your valuation is a rough number that the thing is worth, that the thing is worth holistically, right? And that valuation is about whether or not someone will pay it. If someone will pay it, then you exit. If someone won't pay it, then then it won't work. And sometimes it's the price, right? It's always attached to the price, like home sales, right? And the example I always use is that if you're selling your house and the realtor comes in and says, hey, you could get more money if you redid that bathroom, right? If you spent, if you spent $15,000, you get $40,000 back, right? Yeah. And your response is one of 2 things. That sounds great. Let's do that. And I'll take the time to do that, put that money out, do that work, that 3-month project, whatever, so that I can make, an additional $25,000 on my asking price. Or I'll go, nah, I'm good. I'll let the other people do that. I'll just call out the fact that, and it'll be priced accordingly. That's the same thing that happens with your business, right? And so maybe you didn't do that giant, whatever. Maybe you didn't do that growth project that you wanted to do, that you had an idea for, and you wrote a plan down for it and everything, but you didn't get to it. We call that a marketable inefficiency, right? The ability for you to say to a buyer, hey, I plan to do this thing. I think this thing would work and grow and whatever. I didn't get to it. I didn't have enough money or time or whatever, but here it is. It's part of what you get when you buy the business. And guess what? Here's an automatic way for you to start growing the business right away. That's incredibly valuable to a buyer, right? But the bottom line here is that it's a matter of just, there's not one particular area that matters most. It's about what particular area matters most to your business in terms of what you're doing. We talked before, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, right? There's things that, I'm a marketing guy. I always have been. And so I'm always going to gravitate towards those things that I know, right? I'm not, believe it or not, I'm not a financial guy. Okay. And so That's why I hire financial people. The reality is that I
Right.
need those things, to be able to come in, and they look at the world differently, right, than creative people do, right? It's just the way that it is. And so we need all of them. And at Exit Engine, we're bringing all of them to bear for you as you need them.
Yeah. So let's kind of shift and talk about like the emotional side. And you kind of talked about that a little bit in your story at the beginning, where you were talking about how you didn't plan for the next 10 years. What are some common emotions that come up that you help people reframe without feeling like they're giving up control and they're kind of giving up their baby?
Well, first of all, again, it is about identity shift, and we have many partners in the space, right, that are helping us. Look, we are living in a time right now where people are a lot more open to the understanding of what's happening to them psychologically. It's a problem, but especially for men, as I think we've seen in the news and all that stuff lately, it's a big deal. This notion that we have modeled a certain behavior as men, especially in America, over centuries, and that the reality is that it is in many ways in our modern world doing us more of a disservice than it is of a service. And so that's the shout out to anybody who's ever struggling with any kind of mental health issue. I'd just like to say, look, I'm always here for anybody who wants to talk about that stuff, because I think it's a big deal. I've had my own what we call dark night of the soul. And that, by the way, I think we're going to be actually doing a podcast in the next couple of weeks on this very topic, because sorry, not a podcast, but a webinar, because we need to teach people that there's these things that happen to you while you're an owner. Okay. You can often come across this particular thing that we call a dark night of the soul. It's what people call midlife crisis. Okay. It's this funny feeling where I suddenly feel detached from things, where I suddenly feel like maybe I lost the plot a little bit of what I was doing. Like, why am I doing this? And where am I? And what happens is that people start to lose themselves. And and as a result, they start to try to fill the hole inside them with like stuff and changing and, things that, looking elsewhere for satisfaction, you know what I mean? For things and that's not the case, right? It's actually an inside problem, not an outside problem. And that inside problem is often the universe, whatever, telling you that maybe there's something more for you, and that now's the time for you to start examining what's going on here so that you can see where you're supposed to head. Okay. And again, that's a big way of saying I'm burned out on this job, or, because what I have is built myself a job, not a company. Right. And so now I'm burned out. I've kind of maxed out my thing. I'm losing my steam for this. I'm not as into it as I am. I'd rather be playing golf or being on the beach or being with my family or whatever, or doing that stuff. Or I'm going to go buy myself another sports car. Right. That's the stuff that goes on. But the reality is that this emotional component of it starts there sometimes. But the bigger thing is that even if you're in a happy situation, as you go through this transition, there's normally this thing called earnout. And the earnout is the back half of the deal. What do we mean? Well, at the beginning of the deal, or within the transaction, you're going to basically have a value of the transaction. And that value is going to be split into two parts. Some of it's going to be cash. Some of it's going to be maybe come in the form of an equity play down the line or something like that, or a piece of some larger pie. Or, and almost always, it's going to involve you having to do certain things in a period of time transition-wise that helps the new company get a hold on what you're doing and how you're doing it on a daily basis and things like that. And so you stay in there. And what they want you to do is to say, hey, look, please, at the very least, and this is all negotiated, please keep the clients. Please make sure that the revenue stays where it is. Please make sure this happens over the next 3 years while we transition around this and decide how to integrate you with us and, or whatever they're doing. Right. And so it's that period where things start to change, because in my case, I'm no longer the boss.
Right.
Right.
You lose that control.
You lose the control of the things that are going on. You watching your baby be taken by somebody else. I mean, you can imagine being like, I can't imagine being a mother who's like giving their baby up for adoption or something like that and watching them take them out of the room, right? It's got to be heartbreaking. That same thing going on with your business is like, wait, where are you going with this? And of course, they're making decisions because they now own it, right? Yeah. You don't get to vote anymore. Now, unless there are, and again, this is what we mean about our own terms. Okay. So it's a good time to mention the fact is that what we're trying to do is to teach people how to get to a place where they can do this on their own terms, right? That's not just about money. That's also about all these other things, right? The ability to be able to understand that I am in I'm in a transition, but I'm in a place where I no longer get to make the decisions. Now, hopefully I can negotiate my way into staying involved in some way or guiding, right? But it depends on who's buying you. It depends on what their notion is and what they want to do moving forward, and all those things come into play. So what happens though is, again, the emotional side of this part is I'm watching my baby be taken and manipulated. I may not like how it's being done. I may think that they're ruining it. By the way, sometimes they are. I mean, it's the truth. You no longer get to have this control over it. And that can be a very, very difficult thing to watch. It can also make you make bad decisions, right? It can send people into, trying to into pain spots that then they try to self-medicate with and things like that. And the other bad thing is that if I don't know what I'm going to do next, that compounds this particular issue, right? Because I'm used to hanging around this business. I'm used to being in this stuff. I'm used to dealing with the clients and talking to them on the phone and doing all that stuff, right? And now that's going away, and what am I going to replace it with, right? Yeah. And so if I don't have that to do, I'm like hanging around doing stuff, and I'm just like, it's like my dad coming home and saying, "Hey, look, you missed a spot in the laundry," or something like that. And my mom going, "What the, get out of here." You know what I mean? You don't get right.
Yes.
So anyway, I think that's the big thing. And for me in particular, it was a matter of what are we going to do next? And I had a lot of ideas. I had business stuff. I did a bunch of things. But I think that the amount I had been dragged down, it shook my confidence, right? It shook my, own identity. Like, who am I? Am I allowed to be doing this? Like, all these things that are going on with again, the human brain is the human brain does one thing really well, right?
Yeah.
Protect you. Try to protect you. That is really all it does. Okay. It's terrible at predicting anything. It's terrible at, right? It's what is really, your nervous system is really good at warning you about something. And by the way, that something might not be real. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but the idea of being able to understand that this is going to happen is half the battle, because you can protect yourself from it. You can say, okay, I understand. You can get some coaching. You can talk to one of our advisory partners that helps with these things, right? You can talk to, Svenja Floberg-Thiel, as an example, who's an advisory partner of ours who deals with dark night of the soul stuff and helping you through that situation. The point is that there are answers out there. It's just that you got to know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's so many things you said in there of find a group, find the support, get the help you need. You shouldn't be doing this alone. How many founders do you see try to do this alone? And how many of them do you see that they end up, it ends up crushing them because they're trying to do it alone? Like, is this something they should be doing alone?
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. I think, first of all, about 80% or so of businesses will not transfer. Okay. So that means that, and that's normally because of one of the 5 Ds, right? Death, divorce, disability, disagreement, and dissolution. Okay. Those are the 5 most common exits, right? Those are exits, right? I exited, right? And that's I exited in a box, but I exited, right? The idea is that, and so there are the first part of what we're looking at in exit planning is, okay, how do we protect the business against these 5 things, right? Because we want the business to move on. We want the business to be, to succeed, right? Literally and figuratively, right? We want that business to be able to move on somehow, whatever, so that when I'm gone, my wife can get the money out of it, or I want to do this over here so that my husband can do this and my kid can go to college. And these are all things that if you have a healthy, sustainable business and you're going to sell it one day, you can actually ask for, right? I've seen people have their spouses paid in perpetuity.
Wow.
Okay. It happens.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how creative can you be and what can you ask for. And again, it's about when you have something somebody wants, you get to be in the driver's seat, right? And there's no difference in exit planning in that. So I think that the bottom line is that it is for people that are exiting this way and stuff like that. It's a matter of understanding, first of all, that you do need help. Okay. And I think, Shawn, about your question about the like percentage breakdown of people, I think the idea is that it's less of a percentage breakdown, but it runs along gender lines. So what we see, this is the truth, is that men are less likely to ask for help. Men think they've got it all figured out, and especially men who have succeeded. They tend to be the worst people to work with, frankly, because and the reason is, again, they have a hard time taking this what got you here won't get you there philosophy to heart.
Yes.
And again, that's fine. This is one of the reasons why we created Exit Engine the way we did. You can do this on your time frame, on your timeline, by yourself, without anybody else knowing if that's how you feel about it. Okay? But we implore you to even at least get that help to do this stuff. Meanwhile, women founders are much more willing to ask for help. They're much more willing to stand up and go, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. And that's why, honestly, we Exit Engine tends to attract more women founders than typical. Not more than there just aren't enough to be, actually have it be more than men, just in general. But I think that we see more women here than we would see in any other kind of different kind of exit planning, or certainly within business brokerages and things like that.
That's really interesting.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's super interesting. Just like the mindset shift that has to happen, the play in gender roles. It's just really, I mean, obviously it's not a predictor, but you can have sort of some stereotypes that happen. And I just think it's just really interesting. As a woman, I definitely do ask for help a lot more.
By the way, and you're right, just so you know, okay, you're absolutely correct. And my downfall for a decade, okay, was not asking for any help.
Yeah.
Was thinking I had it all figured out. Not only that, or at least that I couldn't, and that I was embarrassed if I, that if I had to ask for help, if I didn't know something. This is what happens. This is psychological stuff. It's limiting beliefs, right?
Yeah.
Your ability to think that you have to control every single aspect of what you do as opposed to letting it happen.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a shift in there too that says, hey, look, you've built this momentum, man. You got this, right? What do you want to do? What do you want? I want to make this a 30 million. I want to take home $8 million minimum when I sell my business. Great. Let's work it out so that that's the number that you get.
Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And let's bring all the people in this ecosystem that we build around you. That's going to help you actually do that stuff. And by the way, along the way, you'll get to get back and back and back, right? And actually have more free time and more freedom and more time to do other things that you want to do in your life, whether you sell or not, right? And the beautiful thing about this is that it also happens to be just the best way that we can think of to actually just measure the actual health and sustainability of your business is with your total exit value score, your ability to be able to say, hey, look, with all the things I got going on, I'm deficient here and I've got a report card and it's not perfect. No business is, but it's enough that I'm going to be able to get the $8 million I need to do the next thing or whatever it is that I want, as an example.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your wealth of knowledge, not only your story that you went through, where you went from a marketing company to kind of the pit of despair, all the way back to building another company where you're actually using the lessons that you learned to be able to help other founders and entrepreneurs. Like, I really enjoyed our conversation here. So how do people get in contact with you? I know you have a podcast, you have a website, but if somebody listening is like, yeah, I hadn't thought about it like this, how do they get in contact with you?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we do have a podcast, and if I could plug that, that'd be great. It's called the Exit Engine Podcast with Joe Stapleton and John Caniff. It's available anywhere you got podcasts, but particularly at podcast.myexitengine.com. That's, again, our conversations about exit planning, the things, the stories, the cautionary tales, the advisory partners that are in our network that we interview about the individual pieces of your business that you can improve and how to do that. And so that's there. LinkedIn is probably where we hang out.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is really where it has become our kind of community. And so we're there all the time. It's Joe Stapleton, JoStapleton on LinkedIn. My partner's name is John Caniff, John Canniffe, Canniffe. And so we can, there's that. And then of course, myexitengine.com is where we're pointing everybody right now. And if anybody wanted to start thinking about this stuff, right, you can get started for free right now by visiting myexitengine.com. You're going to go to this place. You're going to see a video with my ugly mug on it. You're going to listen. You're going to watch that video. You're going to set up an appointment. You're going to talk to us, and we're going to be able to do basically show you on that very first call what your value is right now and what your value can be, where based on what you want it to be and how we would get there if that was the case. So very valuable first phone call to be able to just get a notion of what we can do and how we can do it, and what the outcome can be.
Yeah, awesome. For sure. Really setting the stage for those business owners to be able to dream. So
that's it. Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a YouTube community called a YouTube channel called Exit Engine Community. But the really thing that we're talking about is myexitengine.com. This is the beginning of our ecosystem and community where you're going to get, and it's a platform. It is a place to go, but it is a matter of getting bite-sized, digestible content kind of delivered to you on a regular basis, and then the coaching that goes along with that, and of course the advisory partners that you get access to. We're constantly, and again, it's not just one advisory partner per industry.
Right.
Each discipline, we have multiple, so it's a matter of who's right for you in geography and industry and all kinds of other things. So Absolutely. We're very buttoned up that way, but we like to make sure that we've got someone to help everyone.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for being on the Better Together podcast. I appreciate it. We'll link everything in the show notes so that way you can get in touch with Joe if you're interested in a solid exit strategy from the very beginning. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys. Kelly and Shawn is really great. I love what you guys are doing too, and fantastic, and would love to come back at some point too. And also, we know we're going to do this the other way around too, right?
Yeah,
Sounds
that
good.
would be great. When I first met you, I was like, this conversation's going to keep going. I see this.
Totally. There's lots we can do together for sure.
For sure. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.